Logan. Well, following the Capitol riots, many questions have been raised regarding the security in Washington, D.C. that Logan was just talking about. And as we told you just this morning, there were reports that the Capitol was evacuated due to an external security threat that ended up being just a small fire under a nearby bridge. And that's what prompted the evacuation. But Americans do seem to be on edge as D.C. ramps up security ahead of the inauguration. To talk more about it is a former member of the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, Lieutenant Steve Rogers. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. You no doubt heard Logan going through some of the steps that are being taken there. And, you know, as we take a look at some of these images of the National Guard troops in Washington, D.C., it looks like a police state. We're talking about over 20,000 National Guard troops. That's more troops than combined in Afghanistan and Iraq right now. What is going on, and is this necessary?
Well, what it shows me very clearly is that there seems to be enough intelligence and information, and we're talking about credible and actionable intelligence that is causing this level of security. I'm sure that our law enforcement agencies and maybe our national security agencies have information that they're not sharing with the public, and that's fine. I understand that. So, look, we've been talking about the domestic threats, but maybe they've got information on some foreign threats. Keep in mind, we're very vulnerable right now to a possible terrorist attack from a foreign entity. So they're taking all the necessary precautions. I think the level of security certainly will keep Washington safe and our nation well prepared to deal with any eventuality.
Lieutenant, I went to Iraq in 2003, and you had a green zone there, and you kind of had this concept of a box inside of a box inside of a box. So the closer you get in, the further in the boxes, the tighter the security, and you got to get through all the other levels to be any threat. What is the biggest threat to that kind of setup? Because that looks like the kind of concept they're acting out here in Washington now.
Well, in my view, the biggest threat could come from the air. Keep in mind that there are drones that are now used by domestic or terrorist organizations. They've got to worry about making sure that no aircraft at all is going to be flying in that area at all. So that would be the biggest threat that I would be concerned about. Trying to get into, as you say, that inner box is going to be tough for anybody to do. But saying that, I understand that they are prepared, meaning our law enforcement agencies and government are prepared to deal with any eventuality from the land and from the air.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you said in reference to them not sharing, obviously, all the information that they have with everyone, because that would defeat the purpose. But they do seem to have moved from the threat of armed protest, including armed protests that they said would happen at state capitals, many of which were guarded over the weekend and no one showed up, or very few people showed up, to now saying that they are fearing an inside threat. And so now all of these National Guard troops, 20,000 of them, are being vetted to basically do a loyalty test to see which ones are loyal to President Trump, and then they're deemed a threat. Is that normal? Is that constitutional? Can our troops, do they have to answer?
Well, the troops are going to have to obey their orders. As far as the constitutionality, I'll tell you, I'm concerned about that. I mean, just because you support a particular political office doesn't disqualify you from serving your country. But let me add this. It is absolutely impossible to do a thorough vetting or background investigation on all these people in the next 48 hours. It took me up to 5 years when I was in the military to get a recertification, if you will, of my security clearance. So they're going to ask questions, and they're going to be, I'm checking out the databases. Maybe they're going to be asking soldiers if they know of any other soldiers who have made some comments that would raise concern. But the constitutionality of this is going to be something that I'm sure will be argued in the courts, and I'm sure that it'll fall on the side of these soldiers. Look, they don't lose their constitutional rights when they join the U.S. military, but they must follow orders.
Lieutenant, I have family that have either been in the Guard or are, and it seems like these units know each other pretty well anyway, don't they?
Yes, they do. They're loyal men and women serving our country well. They do get security checked before they get into the military. Obviously, there could be concern that some may have been radicalized. If that's the case, well, maybe the military should do a better job moving forward. Maybe security and background checks every month or every 2 months. But to think that they would do 25,000 in 48 hours is certainly, I think, a failure on their part if they have to do that now.
Do you think this is a new normal for us? I mean, it really is a shame. This is, an inauguration of the President of the United States, and we're living in this police state situation. D.C.'s mayor, we heard her speaking there in Logan's piece, who said something along the lines of, we'll have to replace the security that you're seeing now with something else, replace it in some other way, leading one to believe that this will perhaps be a new normal, at least for a period of time.
I don't believe this will be a new normal. I remember the riots and unrest in the 60s during the Vietnam War. And in past years, we had a lot more going on than what we have now, although the magnitude of this seems rather large. We're Americans. We're resilient. I think as we move along, based on the threats of any rally, of any government type of rally that we're seeing now, they'll take the necessary measures. But as far as a new norm, I don't believe that's going to happen. I believe we're going to get back to normal. We'll get back to normal. We're Americans. That's what we do.
And you think everything will go okay Wednesday?
I think everything will go fine Wednesday. And I think based on what we see, we are showing the world that, look, if we could still function as a country and do well, it's time for everybody to lower the temperature and let's move forward and help each other.
All right. We'll leave it on that positive note. Lieutenant Steve Rogers, thank you, sir.
Pleasure. Thank you.
All right.